Hello everybody and welcome to another week of Tryhard Tuesdays where we learn to try a little bit harder. I am your host, the Grand Wazoo, and sitting here with me is the Grandmaster Flubb. Flubb, how's it going?
Okay, I guess. Pretty rough games this week, but it's alright.
I mean, it's a good thing I love podcasting so much because Dota 2 is just kicking me straight in the teeth over and over again this week.
I hear you.
And I feel like it's kind of something I've learned to like about the game, but at times it can certainly get tiring. I don't know if I feel lost in the meta or if I'm just bad not devoting as much time, but whatever it is, leading up to the International, I've been playing some very, very poor Dota.
Yeah.
What about you?
Here,
Are you on a losing streak? I know we won a game together the other night, which was nice.
Well, it's like I'm kind of on a losing streak. I never really get on too big of one. I consider losing streaks if it's just more if you lose less than 50% of your games. I feel like I'm on a losing streak, and It's definitely been that way in the past week. And generally, I'm doing okay whenever I play with fun games, and I'm just doing stuff. But I've been trying some new stuff in practice. My drafts have been kind of weird, and I've been trying to get some stuff going, and it causes a little tension when you do that, and it also it's just stressful on yourself when your ideas don't come to fruition, and you're just shit, well, that didn't work. Well, try something different next time. So
yeah, I can even explore that on the micro level. At my experience of having spent my past 2,000 hours in the safe lane trying to switch to something and seeing all the different nuances and having it not just be immediately apparent as it might be in the lane you're accustomed to. It's frustrating, right? Because you know how things should go, but you don't always know the means to get there. And mechanical skill and being able to theory craft about the game are two very different things. It's interesting because we've had a lot of talent come through .p, and everyone, either personally or on the show that I've had the ability to interview, I always ask them if their skill goes up as they cast, and almost all of them say the opposite, that it goes down the more they cast, the more events they do, the more time they devote outside of the game. It doesn't quite translate over. I mean, you can talk about it all day, but if you're not there putting in the hours, well, you're kind of shit out of luck, right?
Right.
I mean, you got to go through these drafts and fail them before you can see something that goes, well, this doesn't work, but this does, right? So
right. And it's stuff with working in people's favorite heroes too. There's some times where people will be so good on a hero that you kind of want to work it in. I was trying to work in the other day a Pudge draft for my buddy who plays mid on my team, and it just epically failed. And I mean, I think it can work, and I think Pudge mid is not a bad way to play. I just think that for the way our team flows, it definitely doesn't work. So, and that's kind of what it is knowing your team. And I mean, even 6 months later, you learn stuff new about your team and try to push them to do different things, and try to you're making a team. You're not making a style. So you want to just try to push and pull on the strings of what you're comfortable with until you truly know your weaknesses and strengths.
So what kind of weird drafts are you talking? Are you just putting people on heroes they're not comfortable with, or are you just putting them together in ways you guys aren't accustomed to?
Kind of a little bit of both, I guess. I guess I'm just trying to do some stuff, trying to put people on heroes that are I like to try to get a wide spread of heroes, because I'm one of those players who likes to play a lot of different heroes. So generally I try to draft my team, and so you don't get bored by playing the same hero over and over. Or it's not even about being bored, it's also about having the option to play something different.
You need that elasticity, right?
Right.
If you'd never work to the metaphor, if you never work out the muscle, it's not elastic, and if you stretch it past that point, it's not going to be a good thing. So
yeah, and a couple months ago we were doing that. We were playing certain drafts over and over, and I didn't want to keep doing those same drafts, because I felt we may have like lost a game or two because we're doing the same heroes over and over. So, it's a happy medium ground. You got to try to find enough that people still can like learn and grow with the hero and still be super comfortable and play on like any level that you need them to. But at the same time, you need them to not play just that hero. You got to expand it to like, certain levels. You'll have like 3 heroes here. You'll have certain people with like 5 heroes here, and then you'll have certain people with like 15 heroes. So you just gotta balance it. It's the way that drafting is both exciting and extremely frustrating.
It's like more punishing than an already incredibly punishing game. It feels like. But I onto the better team news for Hakuna Marana. He just came off a loss, and so did I. So like that might be the mood. But there is good Dota news, man, and that's that your team won the Battle Cup.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you unfortunately were not there.
I had a prior engagement, but I picked my team, and I'm proud of them, and they did a great job, and they used some pretty cool drafts, and it was exciting stuff. I'm happy to be supportive of them. They earned it. They played some good Dota last weekend.
Yeah, they had quite a lot of viewers, so they're getting a following. And I actually got to play. Me and Roland got to play a game with you, Fafnir, and Proud. Right after the game, and it was pretty interesting because we kind of got to see our team communication from the inside, which is going to give me a bit to talk about because you guys are a very, very fluid team in terms of communication. It feels like you're always relaying very good information. So I don't know. I'd like to talk about that at some point when we kind of get into the meat of our discussion. But congratulations to Hakuna Marana and all those players. I mean, that was just you could see the hard work paying off, which is cool. I mean, it's something that I've watched grow. So definitely awesome job.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you, man. It means a lot when people, say that they are excited for us, or whenever someone says, congratulations, because it's pretty cool to have someone watch you and look at that, because when you're looking at it from my perspective, from someone on the inside, you kind of feel like you grow so slowly. But,
yeah.
When you see other people say, yeah, you've grown a lot since like, a month ago, you're like, oh, really? We have? Okay, cool. That's good stuff.
It's like when you're in the eye of the hurricane, it's like you can't tell the movement of distance outside, right? But like everyone else can see the distance move. Or the hurricane moved the distance. I don't know. It was just really cool to see that you guys play on Saturday. I watched the finals, and that's it. And it was just really cool because it was just back and forth. You could see the decisions coming out. And at times I think I would question something and just be able to look at it and be like, oh, now I see why they did that, because I thought about it a couple steps. But it's just definitely some next level shit going on in that game.
Yeah, they played well.
I mean, I was watching Proud mainly because I'm a carry player, and he's really good. But you can always check out his and Ursinity's show. This is their team on Thursday, so just give a little shameless plug out there, and we'll get moving into the middle part of our conversation. Anything else you want to add about Hakuna Marana development? Are you going to win it next week, Flubb?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I can't wait to watch.
I don't want to be too cocky now.
Dude, just put me in. Put me in, coach. Like, put me on your team. We'll see. That's the real challenge. Can you win with me as deadweight?
No, you're not that bad, man. You're pretty good.
Oh, thanks.
Just
maybe not like Proud good, but that guy's like whole nother level these days.
Yeah, he's really, really good at the game, and it's kind of cool. A lot of people don't really know how our team works, but like, even though I'm technically captain now, like he was captain before, so me and him do a lot of working together, and I use some of his drafts and he used some of my drafts, and like even every now and then we'll like have Skrunk do a draft. So our team's pretty fluid and flowing, and we all respect each other. So
that definitely came through in the kind of the conversation I got to view in those games we played, and I kind of wanted to talk about the difference in communication between our levels. And today we're going to be talking about pitfalls, not just in communication, but in game choices, in, knee-jerk reactions, things that can cost you games. I know I have a couple just from my 3K so-and-so level games, and I'm sure Flubb has a lot more. So we've decided to discuss pitfalls this week, and we'll be moving into the team stuff and, getting real ready for the international.
Oh yeah, so excited for
Oh,
that.
baby. We have some
God.
plugs for the international, but we'll save those for the end of the episode. So let's just hop right into it, Flubb.
Sounds
What
good.
are some of the biggest pitfalls or things you would say to avoid in Dota 2?
In my personal opinion, one of
Yeah.
the biggest pitfalls and one of the things that upsets me more than anything in Dota is when people don't understand builds or ideas that have been set forth and they're just running a pattern that exists out there. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's kind of like filtered out at certain points. But you'll probably see it as people especially if you're new at the game, you'll see people doing it more and more. Is they'll just like see a pro do something, and then they're like, okay, this has to work every game because it's so strong. And it is really strong, and there's a reason why it works. But you have to know the reasons behind it, because if you don't, then you're never gonna know what's good in a patch, and you're just gonna be like following the person behind you, and you're never really gonna get anywhere doing that, in my opinion. Um, I always I hate seeing people like pick up um like a crit stick. I always call it crit stick, but chrysalis or anything like that, like on certain heroes, and there's no reason to have it that game, or they'll have like they'll need like other damage items like an MKB or a like a diffusal or something more defensive but still attacking. So like you may pick up a diffusal one game just to be able to like take off the silence and still have some good damage output, or MKB to get through the miss chances. And like it drives me up the wall when people go versus a Tinker and they don't build MKB, or they go versus a Tinker and they don't build BKB. That's, oh my god, that
Do you see
hurts
this
me
a
to the
lot
core.
at your level of play? I mean, you're nearing 5K. I mean,
It's crazy, but yeah, people don't build BKBs versus tankers, and it kills me. Like it kills my soul. It's so bad. Like build BKBs. I cannot say this enough. Build BKBs. They are very good, especially versus the people who only cast spells and they can't deal any right click damage.
like
That's how you win
Disruptor, like
games.
Disruptor, right? I mean, like the
Disruptor
ring goes
doesn't
down, you
generally
just
do damage,
yeah,
but
that's
like
true.
it's good to have versus a disruptor because he just shuts you down and makes sure that you can't cast spells, which is horrible for 90% of the heroes in the game. So, yeah, build BKBs versus disruptor. Build just counter the other team with your items. Don't just follow a build mindlessly and not think for yourself. If you're doing that, Dota is not for you. I can guarantee it's not for you. You need to think about every decision that you make within the game and try to learn from it. If something doesn't work, then at least you'll know why, and you'll see why it doesn't work in a game. Don't just do what's the most popular. Um,
And
it,
look at for a micro example of what he's talking about. I'm gonna try to provide these, like try to relate it back. Think about what you just buy for your heroes at the start of a game, and how much that can vary in terms of giving you an advantage in lane. If you know your lane's going to be hard, you can take certain things to lane that make it a little bit easier. I mean, just these little examples. Dota's a game that is sure dictated by the hero you pick with its skills, but also how you build that hero from then on out.
oh my god, one thing that you just reminded me of, wands. Like even at my level, people don't buy wands versus people until like 15 minutes. And then if I play in lower level leagues, people will not buy wands the entire game versus like bristles, PAs, Skywrath mages. Like it's such a good item. It gives you
Even
so
just a
many stats.
stick.
Yeah, even just a stick. And like I know there's a new item that like even helps you out more, and that's the raindrop, which we talked about a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we talked
That
about that on your first episode, I think.
mhm. And it's a great item, and it should be try to be bought almost every game.
There is
There's
something we
very
didn't
few.
mention, by the way. I'm glad you brought that up about the raindrop, and that's that you can't buy it until what is it?
Minute 4.
Minute 4. So it's not an item you can even start with. Too OP.
Right.
Yeah.
And in my personal opinion, I think it needs to be pushed back even more
Like 10
because
minutes or something.
either that or like put it on like a timer like smokes like at 4 minutes, 8 minutes, 12 minutes, like a new one becomes available or
I like
something.
that.
Um,
Like a new stack of 5 would become
yeah,
available at. Yeah, that's interesting.
like do something in a way that uh, makes it less available but still good. Because if you nerf it at this point, the item's going to become worthless. But if you keep it the way it is, it's just going to take over the game. Like if you play versus a Lina mid, it just shuts her down completely and makes it unviable. So, um,
So to kind of summate your point that I'm hearing, it's don't just do something because you see other people do it. Think about your processes and think about why it might be good for your individual game. Analyze that, and you'll grow way more than just following Tortellini build or something, right? Every single
exactly,
game. Because I see
exactly.
people follow builds sometimes that just make absolutely no sense, and I'll look at it and it'll be like a build for a certain occasion. You know what I mean? And it's not the occasion whatsoever. They just kind of like built it because it defaulted into their thing. Or I've never used those things, so I have no idea how they work. Do they like replace all the items on your in your actual shop to like your recommended build and tells you?
See, I haven't even used
Yeah,
those
I
either,
don't know.
and it's funny because like people talk about using them all the time, and if it works for you, great. Like do your thing, but you have to at least think about each item. And I would go with people or against people that would like, oh, you didn't build such and such item, then that's worthless. You lost. It's like, no, actually, if you look at the other team, they prevent that item from even functioning. So there's no reason to build that item in the first place. I hate whenever people like look at my items or look at another teammate's items and say, "Oh, they didn't pick up like blink on this hero." Well, that's dumb. It's like, well, actually, they have a Naga with Radiance who's like burning you and constantly splitting so that you could never blink and never get into the right position. So actually, a Force Staff is like 20 times better in this situation.
But because it's generally the item that should be gone, they're immediately saying it's garbage if you don't go this item.
Exactly. And
It's like a great example of this. Void at my level, it feels like everybody is always building him with Mask of Madness just because it was something that is kind of, I don't know, iconic of the hero from a long while back. And
yeah,
so
before the Switch, I could definitely see that, like the Switch kind of made it so that he needed that item. He needed to be able to just do the damage and he could like kind of rewind while he was just attacking anyway. So it didn't really matter. Now he has to be more mobile, and that's just not as intelligent of an item.
yeah, you
Makes sense.
don't want to get blown up. Like
Yep.
you want to be able to have enough time to time walk out and backtrack all that damage. Backtrack used to be complete bullshit. And that's why Mask of Madness even worked, I think, is like you just get in there and just slam away on somebody. And I mean, it was pretty good in Chrono, but now, I mean, you can. There's other options, right? We have the Echo Saber and stuff like that. So I think that's a good example. It's always a good idea to think about your process. Like,
Right.
I'm building this, but why? And I feel like once you do that with heroes, like, you can see cool things happen, like Blink on Jug and stuff like that, and PL. Like you see weird things come out because people are like, well, this might work. Let's try it.
Right. And it's also good to know not only items but hero builds in general. Like it also drives me up the wall when people play Crystal Maiden. Crystal Maiden's one of my most played heroes, and it drives me insane when people only go aura and then only go well, they'll go like 1 point in each thing, go aura as much as you possibly can, and then start leveling the slow, not the stun, which I mean it's quasi stun, it's not the best. There's a lot of reasons not to level it, and in like 60% of the time that is the build to go. Because you need the mana regen for your team. It gives you a lot of support really for every lane, not just your own. She can't really rotate that well because she's super slow. So there's some viability to having that run every single game. But there's also something to say like if they have a lot of carries who don't have the ability to purge the stun, Like, have that frostbite on someone, not being able to attack in certain scenarios is 20 times better than the attack slow that's going to happen.
It just depends on the scenario, though, right? I mean,
Right. And it depends on what you're going up against. And, like, I mean, sometimes, yeah, you can make a point that you're going to get the attack speed slow and you can keep them at bay at that 1 second. But if you're going versus, like, someone like Ursa, it's like, okay, he doesn't give a shit about that. So he's just going to hit his W and then attack at like super fast attack speed anyway. Or like Windrunner, that's a perfect example. Is Windrunner. She attacks at max speed anyway, max attack speed. So you're not really lessening anything, and then you can keep her in place and make sure that she doesn't even get to shoot you. So I don't know. I think that I think that people just generally they'll get bored with the game or they'll get complacent with the game or overloaded and they just don't want to think. And that's when this game kind of isn't for you anymore. Like you need to get beyond that and truly think for yourself.
which isn't something you're used to doing in any game, is
Sure.
the truth. I mean, like, in an age of walkthroughs and builds and anything else you can look up online, you can look up anything on YouTube. People are copying that flavor of the week. Probably less in Dota than any other game I've seen. I mean, you see something on YouTube in games like Overwatch or StarCraft, and it's being done all the time, everywhere
Right.
else. In Dota, I mean, it's a way more. You're playing with people of way different cultures who see way different things, who have different comprehensions of the game. So it just feels like it's always, I don't know, diluted, that kind of meta that drips down from the scene. It's always very strange to me that more of that meta isn't seen. But Dota's a game of, infinite possibilities and tons of heroes, tons of different item builds. It's kind of hard to get into a game and say, I'm going to do this draft or this strategy or something like that. So maybe that's why I don't see it at my level, and I'm also, not at a very high level of play. Do you
Well,
see, like, you see heroes of the week, like the flavor of the week or the flavor of the meta pop up. What do you, like, what do you think of that?
I think that flavor of the week and flavor of the meta is fine because you're trying to figure out what's strong about the hero, and people will play it in a certain way. And if people are truly taking it into their own hands and like seeing why it's built in that way and to understand it, it's fine. But if you see someone spamming and or like say that, oh, this is the only way that you can do it because Kuroki build it this way, or No Tail build it this way. And it's like, all right, is No Tail building it in that one game the way that you do it all the time? I bet if you actually talk to No Tail, he's gonna say, I built it that one game because X, Y, and Z. He's not gonna say I built it that one game because that's how you build the hero and that's the only way that it's done. And he might say that. I seriously doubt he would, but if anything, I would feel like it would be a ploy against like any team so that they don't get any insight because he's not going to talk about this is how you build the hero, and maybe he would maybe he would talk about it, but as even as close to TI, you try to keep your strategies tight, even how heroes work tight, because you don't want to give that competitive edge or give someone some type of know-how that how to build a character better when millions of dollars are on the line.
I mean, look at Liquid. I mean, you look at them with like heroes like Lycan and stuff, and they draft him for a very specific reason, have had great success with him, and I mean, they build him with the Necro Book type build, but they draft him for that pushing objective, right? So when
Right.
you draft a hero for a certain way, maybe it's okay to be like, this is how you build the hero due to the meta and what you're building him or drafting him for. So that's very interesting. I want to move on to one of my points, pitfalls to avoid that I've observed and sometimes taken part of. Let's be honest. I've had some days in low priority. I'm a reformed citizen. Hopefully, I've done my time. Don't judge me. only gay Ben can judge me, man. That's what I got tattooed in low prio prison. Like a
Nice.
couple teardrops under my eyes from the fools I've shanked in low prio prison. But I just think the main thing is trying to micromanage everybody else. Like at my level, it's cancer for a game. It makes people hate you. You make enemies, and ultimately the game gets lost. And I don't mean micromanagement like, hey, there's a PA in this game, our core is probably, one or two of you guys should pick up an MKB or something. I'm talking like where you should be at all times, what you're doing. And sometimes, a lot of the time they're wrong, you know what I mean? And they're just trying to take out their frustrations or whatever and flame in the game. And like listening to that is toxic for the team. It's toxic for the environment, and it just really doesn't work. I've noticed in Dota. Like, I mentioned I was gonna mention something I noticed in Flubb's team, Kuna Marana's communication. That's kind of cohesiveness in communication, and I don't necessarily mean like it's always going or anything. It's just when the tone for communication comes out, it's an even tone of respect. It's not someone talking down to somebody, and I think that's what a lot of cultures think when they're being commanded around or something, is that you're trying to tell them what to do. And if you come off the wrong way, it's very hard to get that line of respect back. So one thing I noticed with your team is things were often suggestions even when they were the right thing to do. Like Proud would say, you can pop your ult and run down here. He would offer it as a choice, you know what I mean? And I think things like this can help keep a line of communication cohesive and clear. And, I don't know, keep that line of respect there and not make someone feel micromanaged. You're giving them a suggestion for the betterment of the team, not so much that you're trying to command them. You know what I mean? And I noticed that a lot with you. You'd notice something and you'd be like, well, I noticed this. We could maybe smoke up and go here. You know what I mean? And it was a chain of events leading up to something that might be good. You were keeping the team in the loop rather than feeling like you had all the answers and were commanding some peons around. And so that's one big thing I've noticed.
Yes and no. That is a good point that you made. I feel like I do say that stuff, and I will be in kind of a less commanding tone, especially when we have the advantage of time. If we need to smoke now, I'm on that shit, and I'm like, no, we're doing this now. And unless someone calls out, I need to get this item. It's important. It'll like bump up my damage twofold. Then I'll say, okay, we hold back. We hold it at tier 2s. We hold it tier 1 or wherever we're at. We're gonna hold at this position while they farm, because generally if you're gonna smoke, you're gonna smoke to. If you're calling it out and it needs to be done right that second, it's either to 1, stop Roche, 2, to like get a good gank on someone who's like clearly out of position or moving to be out of position that you can see from the wards, or 3, you need to be able to get control back of your jungle at that point. So like if you are in a situation where you have to say the commanding words, then you need to be able to say it. But people,
it's difficult to do with strangers, though, isn't it?
It is, but after you play with a while, you guys shoot the shit, and it just doesn't come off that way after a while. But the thing is like, I even have people who like friend me right now, and try to give me advice and try to, give the show, and I appreciate it, I really do. But at the same time, each player and each captain is different. When you get into a game, just because it works for me to be that guy who, talks stuff out and lets stuff go, sometimes it's better to just do that for myself. But for the other guy down here, it might be better for having a more commanding role, because you're playing with a bunch of people who don't have very strong egos, or don't have very strong, don't mind being commanded. But more often than not, especially in Dota, yelling or trying to like prove that you are the biggest, baddest in the room is not going to do anything, and it's just going to frustrate your team more often than not.
I mean, I see this so much where it's just vindication, kind of like you say something to get vindicated or to prove that you're right. And this is at my level of play, like the bad level of play. But someone will tell you to do something, and when you lose the game or whatever, inevitably they'll say, well, if you hadn't done this, we would have won. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like that hindsight thing that isn't accurate, I guess, would be one way to put it. Not only is it not accurate, it's not true. to say that like one decision ruined the game most of the time, but
Mhm.
it just feels weak from like a leadership standpoint, I guess. And I'm talking about that solo environment really sometimes, like where you're playing with people that you have an hour to like meet with. When it's a team, it's a little different because you have time to like understand people's
Right.
personalities a little more. But
Right. And the thing is like if you say like after the fact, if you say we lost because you did this, yeah, sometimes it's good to vent, and every once in a while, when I'm playing in solo matchmaking, when the game is like over, and they are beating up the ancient, and all four of us are dead. Sometimes, you can vent your frustrations at that point. Um, it's still not a good thing to do, but guilty pleasure every once in a while. But
yeah,
if you vent at the like at a certain point that's like after the gank, like, oh well, we shouldn't have done that. I want to turn back and say, were you truly in the right position then to be in that spot? Were you just planning for it to fail? Because if you're planning for it to fail, I guarantee that gank is going to go wrong every time. But if you are truly in the moment, you're like, if someone says go and you rely on that idea, there's a probability that it could work. If you are in the moment of getting them on surprise, there's anything can happen. But if you are like, no, screw you, this is done, this is dumb, I'm just gonna prove a point that we're gonna lose this, then you are feeding at that point, and you are feeding your teammate at that point.
yeah. Um, so what other things do you have any? Do you have another one you can add? Pitfalls, pitfalls.
That actually kind of goes right into it.
Awesome.
I I both I kind of go down the path of playing too aggressive, and it probably comes off in the way that I talk, and the way that I play. Uh, I am down for ganking, and I want to gank the shit out of everything I can see. I'm taking that guy down. He's my enemy. Like I'm going for him, and that mentality has led me through my entire uh, career playing Dota. Just like I want to go and get the kills that I know I can get, and I've pushed those limits so many times that I know the barrier in which I can get that guy or not. Um, and if I know it and I don't see my carry like help me out, sometimes it's important to get last hits in lane and it's fine. Or same thing with mid. But if you're calling it like for a while and they just don't come, or like you call for that smoke because you can see that person getting out of position, where they're going to be at, and it's 100% kill, and they say, "Okay, I'm coming," and then they're running along. They stop at a creep camp and farm. Oh my God, that is so frustrating. Like as a support player who's like literally sitting there with their no, I mean just sitting there, they're not moving with their controller, just like waiting for you to farm that creep camp and like pinging the spot that they want to group up to smoke, and you waste like a minute of our time by slowly meandering over to the spot that we want to smoke, and then it's usually gone by then. So like nut up and like get together and like stop like worrying about farming 24/7. Like do things in the game besides farming.
And let's not forget that's the thing you should be doing after you've accomplished that objective, right?
It's
You should
true.
like if you've decided to do that, that's team time. Is kind of how I look at it. If everyone's going to do a team objective, that includes you. I mean, even if you're the farm and carry at times. So
Yeah, yeah, and
that's
it's
interesting.
also a point to say. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, no, no.
Um, the it's also a point to say that like don't get too antsy as a support to do the ganking. Like there's many pitfalls, and it's one of my biggest pitfalls that I know as a player is that I get too antsy to get things happen. Sometimes like I don't even want to like say that I'm like Dendy, but like I feel like I have something that like Puppy says in the international. He's like he talks about Dendy, and he's like talks about how he just gets so antsy and just wants to like get into the fights, and that's like his biggest downfall. And that's one of mine too. I'm just like always ready to go. and I almost feel like I have ADD when I play Dota because I'm just like sitting there. I'm like, let's do this, guys, rah! And then like nothing like ever gets accomplished, you know? And then
When you try to force it, is that what you mean?
yeah, and so like if I like
When is too much force? Like, of course, like when you die is when you realize it, but when is usually the point of no return? When do you know that you're pushing aggression that shouldn't be there?
when I look at people's farm and I see where it's at, like sometimes if the carry just didn't go with us, he would have farmed out the jungle and have gotten one more item ahead. Or there's times where when we see like a 5-man gank and we go through the jungle and we pick off a support, like if I called that, that's kind of a bad call on me because a 5-man smoke gank for a support is a loss. Almost every time it's a loss. Unless you're late game and you for some reason have a Necrophos with an alt staff and with like the Ags upgrade and a Octarine. So like you'll have it up for the next fight and he's like 100% out, so it's a 4v5 fight. But that's like the only one situation where that's an okay happening. Um, Picking off a support and smoke is just going to be worse for you money wise because you're not going to get a lot of gold off of killing him, and you wasted all your teammates' time while the cores were all farming on their team. So just lose, lose, lose.
Well, I also have another one. You did two. I'll do two. Oh, gotta have the equal bearing of loads here at Dot P. Me and Flubb. Even though you're the new guy, I should be making you do a ton more work, right?
Of course.
But my second one would be that there is no end all be all answer. I see a lot of people before they get into Dota like ask like, so what's the point, or what do I gotta do, or stuff like that, or this is always good, or this is what you do, or that's what it is, or all these declarative statements that are supposed to describe an ever shifting experience that doesn't make sense to me by now. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things that I held as 100% truth a year ago in Dota 2 that you could no longer say is truth. So not only with a shifting meta or any other type of shifting thing, new items coming out, new heroes coming out, new changes being made to the map, etc. This is just a game that doesn't have an end-all, be-all answer to it. There's nothing that's just going to come out and say, this is it, there's the thing, this is the best hero of the meta, this is the best item of the meta, whatever. There isn't. It's a situational game, and probably the most deeply such situational game that's ever existed overall.
It is. And at a certain point, you can kind of maybe figure out what's like the best hero, quote unquote, because it's just a problem that you don't want to deal with. But if you really look at it, it's not really true because there's always ways to counter people, and there's always ways to make it work. It's just, is that person so? Do you have to devote so many resources where it's not worth it? I think that's what the balancing system is for, and why you have balancing patches in general for that. When a character comes out or a character is changed for an idea or an item comes out, you can understand where it's going, but at the same time, um, it's not there, and he's never going to. Icefrog's never going to really drop anything that just doesn't fit into the game, or that doesn't like that. It's just overpowered.
Even these weird choices are indicative of that, by the way. Like that, right. The Iron Branch change, the Raindrop, all these other things. You could even say the Moon Shard, stuff like that. But sorry, continue on.
No, you're good. The idea is that he's trying to like make everything viable all the time, and Dota is a game that is not built on pay to win. In any scenario, like our skins never change the spell casting time of anyone. They may change looks, which I'm not really appreciative of, but in general,
that fucking Invoker Black Tornado from that new set, dude. That's just so
Yeah.
pretty. I run towards it like a moth to a flame. I'm just like, ooh, and just get picked up every time, you know?
Dude, the Wind Ranger like arrow, like I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to know like the range of that, like where it's hitting now? Because like it's just like a giant beam of energy that comes out. I'm like, Jesus, what was that? But yeah, the thing is like the our sets are nowhere near as bad as any other game that I've ever played for an MMO or for a MOBA, and like you like seriously like anyone who like complains about a hero being too overpowered, go back and play some other MOBAs like for instance Han. Like I'm still upset about this, but like go back and like play that Pyro. They changed Pyro to be like a different person, and they had like a female version of him, which was Lena. It was like 100% rip off of Lena. They just didn't do it before, then they just gave her a skin that was, and the skin was 100% better. You actually casted spells faster. Like, tell me that's not bullshit, and then come back to Dota and you're like, oh yeah, everything is fair then. This is fine.
How much was such a skin?
uh it was like I think when it first came out it was like $4, which like yeah, $4 isn't that big a deal. And it's only $4, but if you do that for every single hero where like a hero is unplayable unless you have that skin or unless you have and like what says
That makes
if
me
they
lol. Do you get it?
but that
Yep.
was wow. Wow, that's been pretty good. That's pretty good. You got me. You got me a good one.
Sorry, what were you saying? I mean, we do live in a really good game. We have a really, really good game for that. And I know there's at least some type of, I don't know, integrity when it comes to stuff like that. That means I'm not throwing my money down the drain, but I'm getting what I pay for. I get what I see. You know what I mean? And that's it. It doesn't change anything else. So,
Right. Right. And I mean, there's minor complaints that really don't like affect the game too much, but if you really look at other games and other styles that like change cast times or change um, like the motions that you do, and you actually like look different as you're casting the spell, which makes it for some reason faster, or I or like being able to do it in like a different way, like over a wall or something. That's cheating. Uh, there's no joy that you're gonna get out of that game in my personal opinion, because you don't want to like keep buying to be good. You don't want the people who are so good at the game to be even better. You want just your skill to beat them. You want to come into a game and say, I beat you because I know the game better and I know how to play it better.
man, by this point, I feel like a beaten dog. I'd give them anything they asked. Just take it. Just take it.
It's
But
true, but hopefully I don't think they'll do that.
yeah. No, you made some good points. These are good pitfalls to think about. You know, they're not the only ones. There's plenty of things you can always do to kind of work on your own communication, work on your build, work on your game sense. Calling the game is a big kind of skill that I never thought about until recently. Playing with your team kind of helped see that. Being able to clearly say what needs to happen is definitely a great skill, and I don't think Dota teaches it naturally until you start to play with a 5 and have people that want to listen to you.
Uh, well, it's also the community, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I bet you've been in games where you start calling stuff and they just like insult you immediately
They say
because
suka blat, and you're like, okay.
yeah, you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna mute this guy and probably just play my own game, and that's a horrible thing to get into a game and do, but it's going to save face if they're going to just flame you the entire time. You're going to play better, and they can then just flame to their heart's content. Hopefully they play better when they're flaming.
I think this is a golden like rule of wisdom of Dota is like when someone starts like negatively impacting your time in like such a solo environment, like mute. Why not? You know?
Yeah.
If you're not getting anything, and I think I heard you say this, if you're not getting anything from that communication, like what's the point, right? So there you go. That's a pretty golden pitfall, is not to let other people control your game, not to let other people tilt you. It's on you. So,
I also think that there's something to be said. Like it's weird. I give that advice, but um, I've kind of embraced that. It's kind of weird to talk, kind of describe to someone. But a lot of times I'll actually be playing with my friends or with my teammates, or just just people in general, and I won't mute people. I think I've muted 20 people in my 4,000 and something games that I've played in Dota. And people are like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, actually, what I do is I kind of just play therapist, just like, it's okay, everything could work, we got this. Like, if I say that over and over, like, eventually people will just shut up and start playing.
And you find when you win more games than if you just muted and ignored it completely and just played your own game.
But sometimes I mute like I said, I still have those 20 mutes because some people are just like beyond saving, right? Like they are there because something horrible happened to them that day or something, and they are just, or they're horrible people. You never know. But generally, give them the benefit of the doubt. Something happened to them, and they are just in an awful mood. And if you just cut them off or just play your own game with the other four that are there, or I'm sorry, the other three that are there, or whatever the situation, that's probably better on you. But if you can, I'm not even going to suggest that people should do this. But if you have a mentality like mine, where you want people to work together and you're always there about trying to make the team cohesive, try to always encourage people. Be like, hey, don't worry about it. Just don't flame each other. Shut up. Let's do this. Or don't even use shut up unless you're in the right situation. You gotta feel the room. But
Flubb takes him into the radiant jungle, and he's like, just lay down, and takes out his notepad, has his glasses on, takes a few deep breaths, and then they're on the clock for the hour. They only get an hour, and he's pretty. It's like 60 golds an hour, dude.
Oh yeah. I gotta make that Dota gold.
But if that works, it works. I mean, that's another skill in itself, being able to rally people to go after a cause that they may think's doomed. And this is coming from a game where a lot of people, like, jokingly or not, call GG a lot of the time at like 10 minutes. I've noticed lately is like they'll get first blood given up. It's like GG. It's like, I don't know if you're joking or not, but that's pretty dumb. Like, we still have a chance. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But those are fantastic rules to live by in the Dota 2 realm. I like I don't know. I like all of it. I think it's just different strokes for different folks. Some people can solve the same problem in many different ways. So that was really, really interesting, Flubb. Do you have anything else to add before we move on to our item of the week?
I don't know, man. I think I'm just excited to get to the item of the week.
Alrighty, and today it is somebody's favorite and everybody's favorite, my favorite item, really, in the game. I don't know. I just like its design. I like what it does. I like how much it costs, and that is the Stout Shield. It is the bottom of a barrel, right? I think is what it's described as, and
yeah,
it's a pretty unique item that you see a lot of carries build, and it's an item that is required a lot of the time, is what some carries would tell me. So I kind of asked Flubb like why, and if we could talk about it. Flubb, what do you think about the Stout Shield?
So the Stout Shield, basically the idea is to stop harassment, right? It's to stop the damage that comes out, and it's not to stop like very heavy harassment or even like obviously not stopping magic harassment, but it's there to stop harassment of like right clicks that exist in lane, kind of give you that buffer that lets the supports be able to roam to another spot. If you don't have it, it's really hard for a support to be able to be like, okay, I'll give you the level advantage and then leave you alone in lane, and you should be able to like 1v1 this guy. A lot of times on our team, that's kind of how I play, and Proud knows this very well. So he'll start off with a Stout Shield in general, just so that whenever I do leave, he has that extra buffer. It's really strong, and it's a good way to keep your health up without spending other things. And truthfully, if you have two supports with you, if you're trilaning, you probably really don't need the extra stats to be able to last hit on most heroes. Certain heroes, yeah, you'll probably need them, but I feel like it's such a waste sometimes when people come into lane with like, why do you have the branches? You know, like if you come in with a branch, yeah, it gives you a +1 on strength, agility, and intelligence, but it's really not giving you any tank ability. Like you can put it down and eat it, but
It's a consumable by that point, yeah.
it's a consumable and
You
like
lose those stats as well. So it's like,
it's the trade-off really isn't that good unless you're like I could see like we were talking about earlier in the podcast if you're like trying to go for like a wand build, an early wand build, you just want to like have a couple of them early, that's possible to do that, but it's much more cost effective to have that early stout shield because the auto attacks that are going to be coming out, they're just probably not going to touch you, like especially if you're there melee. Like they're not going to touch you unless they're doing spells on you,
yeah.
because you not only do you have the supports there, but you're taking less damage generally from their auto attacks.
And you have
So,
regen. And just to be clear here on the stout, it's a 50% proc chance to block 16 melee or 8 range damage. So that's pseudo-random, which in Dota means if it doesn't proc on that 50% for long enough, it'll just eventually make itself proc, is how I kind of understand pseudo-random, right? It's
yeah,
not
pretty
really
much.
random because if it doesn't happen for a while, it'll force itself to. So we also, so this is kind of a simple item to talk about, one lots of people use. We wanted to talk when you would build into a Torment. This gives you an additional 6 agility, and you have a 100% hero proc chance on the damage block now, which is now 20 or 10. And with the non-hero proc, it's 53%, so just over half. It's all still pseudo-random with the non-hero proc chance, the creeps and all that stuff. So when would you want to build into a poor man's? Is it just if you're getting a lot more lane harass? It's only 300 more gold for the 2 slippers?
I think that right now it's actually kind of a bad item to go, and I wanted to talk about it because I think that there's like only a very rare options where you want to pick that up, and that's when you have supports in lane that on the enemy team that will attack you and not do much damage. So if you're going like up against a Rubik, it's kind of good to consider grabbing that, especially like if you're going to be in an aggro lane and your character doesn't really work that well with Iron Talon, which that's kind of not possible right now because Iron Talon's crazy good in the off lane. But in the future, I predict like in the next patch or so that this item is going to get a resurgence because they're going to nerf Iron Talon, and it's not going to be as easy to just go into the jungle and straight up farm.
Even heroes you used to see build this, like anti-mage, now
Yeah,
are opting for the Vanguard and stuff. So
right.
it's interesting. The item isn't what it used to be, I feel like. The 6 agility could be pretty nice, that attack damage to anyone whose main attribute is agility, but there are other ways to get that too. You know what I mean? So it's like you could spend that 300 on those 2 slippers into that, or you could, start working on a Yasha or something like that. So,
Well, it's also another very cheap item that kind of slot starves you because you can get it early, and it's really nice to get early. But the availability and like what it does for what it does, I would rather generally just pick up a raindrop, around like
yeah.
4 minutes.
Just ditch the
Because
stout and pick up a raindrop after you have it. Like, just don't even go poor man's.
right,
Yeah.
because like you're not really gonna have the if you go for the poor man's, then that's like about 600. No, it's like 500 even now, which it's pretty cheap, but that's an entire slot that you're using up. And if you were to keep the poor man's and have a raindrop, that's 2 slots already taken up. And then generally you should have a TP on your character almost at all times. And so that's 3 of your slots already taken up. That's getting pretty crowded already.
And the stout shield is so good for just 200 gold that you also don't feel too invested into anything. But spending 500 is a bit. You know what I mean? Like, you've spent a bit. Not that much, but a bit. So it's like, if you're going to end up selling it anyway, might as well not just go into that dead-end path. But
Right.
that makes a lot of sense. Good breakdown, Flub. I know I'll be picking up more stouts in my games, probably less Poor Man's Shield. I noticed I still do that on some heroes that I probably shouldn't. So, anything else to add before we close out the show? Anything you want to say?
Nothing too much. I'm excited for TI, and I can't wait to
let's
meet
talk
you
about
guys.
that. We will be at TI, all of us. Tryhard Tuesdays, the Monday show will be there. I'm pretty sure Jack from the Wednesday show will be there, KBBQ, because he's
Nice.
translating for the teams there, and the Thursday boys will be there as well. Lots of .p people. Make sure you say hi if you're at TI. Hit us up on Twitter. We'd love to say hi. We'll be doing some events and doing live recordings while we're there as well. So be sure to keep on the lookout for information coming about that. I'm not 100% sure where we'll be recording. I know we have someplace booked, but I don't want to give out the information until we are 100% sure. So come say hi, guys. It's going to be an incredible TI. Flubb will be there. So
Oh yeah,
that's
I'll be
something.
there, and man, I can't wait for it personally, man. I think this TI is going to be one of the best yet, and also being together with the .p crew, this is going to be great. I can't
Hell yeah,
wait.
man.
This is going to be a week to remember.
We're
sure.
going to have crazy content coming at you guys that week. So please tune in, stick around with us. We're going to be there. We're going to be having some great stuff come to you. So keep on tuning in. Flubb, why don't you tell people where they can reach you?
All right, guys, you can reach me at Flubb Dota on Twitter, and if it's with two B's. And if you guys feel like playing, you guys feel like stopping by, you can always stop by at our .p in-houses. We host them on Wednesdays, and I will generally be playing. Last week I tried to do some casting with the guy on the Thursday show, Ursi, as you all know, and yeah, that was kind of a disaster for me. But
Why?
my mic was like all messed up, and
Oh,
people were
that's
like hearing
why.
my voice like twice or like not at all, or it was fun. But I'll have that all fixed, and it's just a good time. There's people of all different skill levels, and it's just about playing Dota with people that are friendly and that won't flame you, and just for fun.
It's a
So,
great time, guys, and that is Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can get at Grouty Dota on Twitter to ask him any questions, bug him, make sure you get on the list, etc. It's kind of first come, first serve. That's what I mean by the list. We have a ladder that anyone who plays gets put on, and you can win cool prizes and all that fun stuff. So, yep, you guys should be going. Make sure you get involved in our Discord and all that stuff as well. We have plenty of cool stuff coming to you. As for me, you can find me at .p_wazoo, and you can find all the .p shows at .p_show or www.defenseofthepatients.com. Make sure to check out our YouTube at .ptv1 and our Twitch at .ptv. Thank you guys so much for joining us and tuning in. Flubb, thanks for another great episode. It's always wonderful to have your Grandmaster wisdom. To everyone out there, make sure you tune in for TI. We have a bunch coming up. Me and Flubb are going to be excited to bring it to you guys. So remember, until then, stay hard, stay classy.